and welcome to another episode here at West Coast Dogman Project. I'm your host, J. Michael Crisp, and I'm joined with my special co-host, Todd Metz, and we're happy and honored to have none other than the author of the Texas Dogman Triangle, Mr. Aaron Deese. Aaron, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Been looking forward to this.
Welcome to
We're
the
honored
show.
to have you.
Honored to have you for sure.
Thank you.
Well, Aaron, for the people that aren't too familiar with you, can you give us a little brief background on yourself?
Yeah, sure. That intro got me pumped up, by the way. So love that.
Awesome.
Love
I'm glad to hear.
Awesome stuff. My name's Aaron. I'm the author of the Texas Dogman Triangle, and I appear in the film The Dogman Triangle, Werewolves in the Lone Star State, alongside Shannon Legro, my good buddy. Both projects are being published by Small Town Monsters, so that's very exciting. I also co-host a podcast called Hey Strangeness with my wife, Sarah. And we run a blog on our Instagram under the same name where you can kind of keep up with what we're doing there. I'm also the former editor-in-chief of Paranormality magazine and full-time stay-at-home dad. So that's the synopsis.
Man, you got the best of both worlds. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm living my best life, dude. I'm writing books.
Say.
I'm talking werewolves. I'm hanging out with the baby. Things are good.
Things are good.
Awesome.
All right. Super.
Todd, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Really happy to be here with you guys. And it's been these podcasts, they just get better and better every time we do one. It seems like we're really having some great guests, and we're probing into the phenomenon and trying to figure out what this thing is, and
Exactly.
get. I think it's a great mix on some of the stuff that we do. We bring in people who have had encounters. We bring in people who, and researchers as well, like Aaron, researching Dogman in Texas. I mean, man, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Aaron, I mean, I know we don't want to take up too much of your time. We'll probably go about an hour, but
Good, man.
Todd and I've got lists of questions because we're two fanboys that read your book and we love it. We don't want to dive too much into the book, but we'll kind of hint around it. So I'll start with the first question. One thing that I thought about was what made you want to write and dive into the Dogman phenomenon?
It honestly, man, it just kind of fell in my lap. I'll be honest with you. My starter cryptid, if you like, was the Mothman when I was young. That's what really kicked off this interest for me. But a personal encounter was relayed to me by a family member, and I had just finished reading The Beast of Bray Road by Linda Godfrey. And the encounter he relayed to me paralleled the sightings in that book so closely that I was hooked after that, honestly. So I, got into the North American Dogman Research Project website, which was indispensable as a research tool, and started seeing other sightings that were really close to this one on the map. And then you start looking at old folk tales and newspaper clippings. And then I started arranging this stuff on a map just for fun, just because I wanted to get a visual image of it. And I kind of took a step back from it, figuratively speaking. And I was like, my God, there's a lot of this stuff down here. So from there, it kind of snowballed. And then when Small Town Monsters approached me about doing a book for the first round of STM publishing releases, I was like, well, yeah, here's some ideas I've got. And that was the one that I had kind of fleshed out the most, and that I think obviously caught their interest because that's what we went with. So that's the synopsis.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so we were, I was looking at, what are the backer videos that the backer video that just came out in with you and Shannon Legro and Lyle Blackburn was on there, and Ken Gerhardt and Nick Redfern. It's some big hitters in the field, to have those folks in there. How did that collaboration work? How did that kind of get started with Small Town Monsters and all of those folks? And so how did you kind of work with those folks on the book and after the book?
Yeah, and those guys are awesome, man. Lyle actually wrote the foreword for the book, so you've got some of his prose in there, which is something I'm also very excited about. But I had talked with Lyle and Ken previously working with Paranormality magazine. Jack had put me in touch with them and, done a great job of setting that up. So we kind of had a little bit of a rapport already. So I had actually already reached out to them about being interviewed for the book. Those interviews had been done when we started talking about doing a film. So from there, I think it was kind of an organic thing. Like, they were all in Texas already, where we're filming the movie in Texas. This is about stuff in Texas. So, and of course, Small Town Monsters has worked with Lyle before and had that existing relationship. So, Nick Redfern, I've been reading his books for years. I think I've got 22 of his books or something like that. And this is the first time I met him. So, we're doing this thing and we're working and I'm trying to be professional and I'm trying to not be far off script, but I'm sitting next to one of my idols at this table and he's looking at excerpts from my book going, that's interesting. That's interesting. So, it was really cool and fun from a professional perspective, but then personally, it was this incredibly cathartic experience. So.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And same with Lyle and Ken, of course. Huge fan of theirs. As
all of us are. They do some great work.
Well, it's like when you're there with the guy that you idolized and read his books, and then being in there in person, it's like, man, like a starstruck moment. It's like, whoa.
We
still have to be on a professional level, though, right?
Yeah, and then we all went to Chili's afterwards. So I'm at Chili's with Lyle Blackburn and Nick Redfern and Seth Breedlove and the rest of the STM crew, and I'm just like, you take a step back and you go, how did I get here? What's happened? Sorry, I don't mean to go on.
No, that's awesome. You should write about that. That would be cool.
Absolutely, that's good stuff. Hey, I wanted to ask you, when you started working on the project, how long did you work on this thing? And tell us when you first, I think what I recall hearing is that it was a buddy of yours and he had an encounter. So from kind of run us a little, run us through that. And I'm sure that encounter made it into the book. And, talk a little bit about that with your buddy there and how that kind of fed into the book and kind of how long did, what's the kind of the time frame of how long this project took you?
Yeah, definitely. So it really started over 2 years ago because that initial encounter that was from a family member, we actually hear from that witness in the movie. He goes by Trent. It's a pseudonym. He didn't want his personal details put out there. And he's in the book as well. And that's the first encounter I cover in the book because for me, that's where this journey kind of started, was with that story. And then again, it expanded and it grew from there. But initially, this was research for an episode of Hey Strangeness, which we uploaded about 2 years ago. And to date, it's still our most downloaded episode. So that's kind of neat. Yeah. But it started with that. And that was the initial, quote, Dogman Triangle, because it was 3 encounters pretty close to Austin, where we lived at the time. And they made up about 700 square miles. And we know from looking at what wolves do, they will occupy an area of about 700 square miles. So at the time, my running theory was that, oh, wow, we've got this little corridor, northwest of Austin where we might have these things moving around. And that's pretty interesting. But then again, we blew out the map and started putting more and more encounters down. It was like, this triangle is a lot bigger than we vastly underestimated the scope. Vastly. And what's so interesting about it is the title, the Dogman Triangle was, okay, well, here's a triangle, so this is what we'll call it. But then when we zoom it out and, again, put these encounters on the map, the triangle pattern is still consistent. I can't explain that. I have theories as to why that is, but I can't tell you for sure why. Yeah. So really, sorry, I rambled again. To answer your question.
No, you're good. This is your platform, brother.
Sorry, man.
You talk about whatever you want. So
I've done a few of these interviews lately, so I'm like, okay, what can I say that's different? That's not a complaint. I love this. But so yeah, that was 2 years ago, and the research was ongoing, and the map got bigger and bigger, and then writing the book took right around 8 months. Starting that project and finished it coincided with us finding out we were having a baby, and then my son being born. Those things happened around the same time, so it was a wild year. Yeah,
no doubt.
Congratulations on the little one.
Thank you. Yeah, he's doing great. He's awesome.
It's good.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you with the book. Now, not to give it away or anything, but do you plan on doing like a follow up or a second book on the Texas Dogman Triangle?
Absolutely love to, and I had it in mind from the beginning to. If I was able to find this much stuff, doing research and talking to people, there has to be more that I don't know about. If you look at the laws of sales or feedback, typically we hear from 3 in 10 people, 1 in 7. So multiply everything that I was able to find out by 3 to 7 times, there has to be more out there. And even since the book came out, I had 2 or 3 people come up to me at Monster Fest, and this blew my mind. I'm still unpacking this, but they said, hey, I'm from some of these parts of Texas that you've talked about. These things are out there. We've known about them for a long, long time. I've seen some comments on forums and Reddit, on Facebook from people saying, yeah, I live between this city and this city that you mentioned in the book in this other town. And we also know about them. And that's, again, maybe 5 or 6. I'd have to sit down and go through my notes. So already this conversation is expanding. It's already happening. So by getting this book out, and I'm so excited because that's something I kind of hoped for from the beginning. Like,
for sure.
Yeah. With any paranormal phenomena, we feel emboldened to share when we see others that have had similar experiences, because we can say, okay, well, at least if I'm crazy, I'm not the only one. So my hope was that this would maybe bring some people out of the woodwork and assure them that, no, you're not crazy. There is something strange out there. And we're already seeing that happen. So I hope so. I hope to do a follow-up, whether it's another book or maybe a revised edition with additional encounters.
Sure.
I'm already brainstorming that stuff, but nothing's in the works right now officially. So
yeah, it was a beautifully written book. And like I said, it was detail for detail. So you did your homework on it. Like I said, it was just, I was still starstruck. Like, wow, it was incredible.
Thanks, man. That means a lot. Sorry.
Yeah, it sounds like that triangle is going to get much bigger. So, Aaron, just kind of give us the points of the triangle.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Dallas Fort Worth makes up the northernmost point, and then at the bottom corners you have the San Antonio area and then the Houston area. There are encounters spread out all over the state. We've got stuff down by the border. We have some stuff by the coast. We have some stuff going up into what Texans like to call the Panhandle, getting closer to Oklahoma. And there's a lot of Dogman activity out of Oklahoma too. So you kind of have to stop and go, wait, now what? What does this look like? Is it an octagon? I don't know. But there was a moment. This is actually something I haven't said before. There was a point where I considered redrawing the lines and making either an octagon or a hexagon or something like that because of stuff that fell outside the map. But that didn't make sense.
Well, you got to stick with the triangle stuff because there's so many paranormal triangles. Obviously the Bermuda Triangle.
We love our triangles. Yeah.
We love our triangles, and I'm from back east. Now I don't know if you guys have heard about a couple of the triangles back east in New England. There's the Bennington Triangle, which is in southwestern Vermont, where a number of disappearances have taken place over the decades. There's the Bridgewater Triangle in Wampanoag country in eastern Massachusetts that makes up, I'm not sure what the square mileage is, but it's in native lands. So, who knows how many other triangles are going on throughout the United States,
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of just people sitting down and telling their stories, being willing to share them. People like you guys creating a platform for them to do that, because if you want to stand on the street corner screaming werewolves are real, like which is if you listen to that initial podcast, that's what I was doing.
Get the tinfoil out.
I said very loudly numerous times on that podcast, werewolves are real. And so having Small Town Monsters get involved validates that a little bit. But no, we have to have these platforms for people to come forward and share their stories. And then I think also for people like, us who are researchers or investigators or whichever moniker we subscribe to, we have to look, we have to pull in as many sources as possible and talk to people. And maybe I'm preaching to the choir here. I know I am, but I think that's why the work you guys do is so important,
We appreciate that. And that's what I wanted to ask you as a follow-up question. Were you skeptical at first before, in the whole Dogman phenomenon, before you wrote the book? Or were you saying, oh, this is Hollywood? I mean, there's no such thing as Dogman.
100%. That's where I started, because I kind of came back to cryptozoology about 4 or 5 years ago. It had been an interest in high school, and then you do the high school thing and your interests change. And, I reached a point where I had hit a dead stop in my career. We had lost a very close family member, and I was like, I just need something to focus on. So I started watching Small Town Monsters documentaries, which is another thing that makes this so surreal, because they really, their work helped me navigate a very difficult time in my life and also set me on this path. So kind of a full circle thing, but
yeah, definitely.
That was what took me back to it. And then it was just a kind of casual, semi full-time hobby for about 2-3 years. Then I started engaging with the Clubhouse community. Ashley Hill, Jeremiah Byron, Greg Morrow, Kenzie Gleason, Sarah Cooper, Matt Shang, Mike And, all those guys who I still consider to be good friends. Yeah, I'm sure I forgot to name somebody. I'm sorry, guys. There's so many of you. Those people that I still consider to be good friends really really brought me into this community and kind of assured me that, hey, this is something you can do. We are interested in what you have to say. And that, Joss and Monique Rose, of course, Fright Light Paranormal. That led to the podcast, that led to the blog, and that ultimately led to the book. So, it's partially just an interest I've had for a long time, but then also a big part of it is just this incredible community of people that is so warm and so welcoming. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, talk a little bit about Shannon Legro and how she fits into the whole process, and also a little bit about the video and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So Shannon, of course, has been in this world for a long time. She's conducted maybe more interviews than anybody in this space. I don't know. I haven't sat down and counted them. She runs a publishing company. She's got 2 books out. Shannon knows her stuff, and she also knows what questions to ask. And she came in admitting that, hey, I don't know a whole lot about this Dogman phenomena outside of the witnesses I've talked to. So as we're going from place to place and we're filming these conversations and talking with witnesses, I've kind of got my standard battery of questions that I would go through. And for me, as a researcher, that's helpful. If I'm asking all the same questions and I'm getting all the same responses from people that don't know each other, that's kind of my metric for, how credible could this witness feasibly be. But Shannon had questions that I had never even thought of. She brought up the fact that there is a supernatural element to a lot of these sightings, and much of Texas is deeply, deeply saturated in limestone. We have limestone everywhere. So that, of course, takes us on a whole conversation about the supernatural propensities of limestone and different minerals and the native folklore of this area. And I hadn't really explored that. So having her come in with a fresh perspective was just invaluable, truly invaluable. And of course, she's worked with Small Town Monsters before. She's in the On the Trail of UFOs series. So, she's got that experience and that knowledge of how to work on a project like this, which for somebody like me, this is the first time I've done anything resembling a film outside of some YouTube nonsense when I was in high school. And we just smash TVs with hammers in the woods. That doesn't count. That's also a new fact.
Fun fact.
You heard it here first.
I maybe shouldn't have said that on YouTube. But no, she was, my co-host and co-investigator, but she also filled the role of mentor and helping me navigate this stuff and taking a lot of the nerves out. And whether she intended to do that or not, she was very effective.
It sounds like she was a big addition to the process for sure.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
definitely.
Yeah.
How about the native connection, Aaron, in Texas? Can you talk a little bit about that? How do you kind of fit that in, into the book, into the research and into, some of the folks that you've talked to in the field, and what's your take on that?
Yeah, so that comes up quite a bit. And until kind of the latter stages of putting the book together, I wasn't able to make close contact with anyone of a native background who could speak to this stuff firsthand. And I think it's my opinion, but I think we have to be careful when we're just reading stories online or even stories in old books that say, hey, this is a Native American legend. Okay, how do we know that? What tribe?
Exactly.
Where did this come from?
Right.
Who gave this story to you that it can go in this book? And if it's just another website that says this is a Native American legend, I'm not convinced by that. And there is an element to this stuff when we're talking about folklore and legends that are deeply ingrained with people's cultures. I think we have to be incredibly careful in the way it's approached. So for me personally, I kind of stayed away from that until I met a guy named Nick out of Medina, very close to San Antonio. And he is of Apache descent. And he, with a straight face, man, as serious as I've ever heard anybody say anything, said, I'm of Apache descent. I've been in Texas my whole life. I'm a 5th generation Texan. And we know about these things. My whole family knows about these things. My grandfather, I forget if it was his father or his grandfather. I believe it was his father, saw one of these things back in the 60s. So that was really interesting, having someone of a native background say, no, there is the conjecture, and people like to say, these things are Native American folklore, but no, they really are. These really are a part of my background. So, and then some of the stories we have coming out of Central Texas, like the Bear King of Marble Falls and the Beast of Bear Creek, they're alleged to possibly have Native American connections. So, but again, then it gets hazy, and it's like, okay, again, what tribes, what time period, it's all that stuff. So kind of
I wanted to ask you, how far back do these sightings go in Texas that you research? What's the earliest recorded encounter?
Not accounting for native folklore that we don't have specific details on yet. And I say yet, hoping that we can learn more as we go forward. About 100 years ago, That's where the earliest reports seem to come up. The Converse Wolfman, the Bear King of Marble Falls, the Beast of Bear Creek, the ones I mentioned a moment ago. Those seem to take place circa late 1800s, early 1900s. There's some conjecture that some of them may have taken place in like the 1950s, 1960s, the Converse Wolfman specifically, but that story involves someone being killed by one of these things, and we can't find any records to substantiate it. So more than likely, it's an older story, is my opinion. Yeah,
I see. Almost like hearsay, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And some of the guys I talked to about that story, Lyle Blackburn and Michael Mays of the North American Wood Ape Conservancy, Jody Cook as well was invaluable, man. Love talking to that guy. Jesse and Joe at Hellbent Holler. There's so many people to thank. They'll even tell you these are old stories and we don't have primary sources for them. But Mr. Mays grew up in Texas. He grew up hearing this story around the campfire as a little kid before the internet. So
yeah,
where did it come from?
Holler's actually in the chat tonight.
Hey, so. Jesse and Joe. That's my folks right there, man. This project would not exist without them. 100%.
Yeah, they are awesome.
They are quoted numerous times. Yeah.
Yes, I noticed that. I was like, that's good to see Jesse and Joe. Same with Jody too. I noticed you into the North American Dogman project. That's what we're both affiliated with. Todd's actually the Washington State representative.
That's what I thought. I'll be honest. I get confused with the different organizations and the relationships. I'm working on it, but I was like, I'm pretty sure these guys are part of the NATP.
So. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. Todd, do you want to ask the next question? I know I asked two.
Yeah. So one thing I was thinking about was, when you were writing the book and you've got, you're talking to these different individuals and, one question it's twofold. How many individuals did you end up talking to? How many people had stories? How many of those people, did you use in the book? And I guess the other part of the question is when you were interviewing all of these folks over the period of time, which one really put you on another pedestal of holy crap? That type of thing, like, wow, put you back on your heels or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I had to cheat. I keep this next to me because I can't remember things.
Sorry.
So there are 20.
Sorry, we're cheating. We're cheating too.
This is every writer's dream, you guys. I'm just going to say that. There are 28 individual areas in the book where we talk about specific encounters, and most of them are singular sightings, with some of those out of Medina, San Houston, also Dallas, Fort Worth. You have talk of, I'm aware of these things being in other areas, I've heard of them being in other areas, but we don't have specific stories to correlate that. Witnesses, personally, I interviewed 10 to 15 people. I had to go back. I would say around that many. And then for the older stories where we don't have witnesses and don't have people we can interview, that's when I really leaned into the specialists and the people I would consider consultants for the book. Other writers, other researchers, folks that I've mentioned this as well. Because I'm like, okay, I can retell this same story, or we can make this a more collaborative thing. We can get more minds in on it. And that's one of the things that I loved about it, is bringing in all these different perspectives from people who I've spoken with and listened to and admired for a long time, and just kind of having the opportunity to go on this journey with that. That was super exciting. So the total interviews for the book, somewhere around 30.
Wow. Actually, you did your research.
Around 30, yeah. I tried to get all the names in the book. There were also people I talked to and I spoke with, like veterinary professionals who didn't want their names mentioned and didn't want to be quoted. My wife's a vet tech, so she knows quite a few of those people. So unfortunately, I don't have an exact list. I should probably do that, but yeah, around 30.
Wow. Yep. Now that's what I wanted to ask you without diving into the book too much. What was your most terrifying encounter?
Yeah, you did ask that. Yeah, sorry. The one that gave me chills, man. And there were a few moments where I stopped and just like had to step away from it because I was like, this is too much. Like we've all been on those research rabbit holes where one thing leads to another, and it's sensory overload. But there's a gentleman out of Dallas, Fort Worth that I spoke with. And I've talked about this story a lot in other interviews because it's the one that really hit me. And he was actually put in touch with me, or I was put in touch with him by Jesse and Joe at Hellbent Holler.
Oh, wow.
But he started encountering these things on his property in late 2021. And he's seen them up close. He's taken shots at them. He's captured images of footprints, claw marks on trees, which if you watch Jesse and Joe's Land Between the Lakes series, they found claw marks on trees that look almost identical to these. So that's a little fact for you. But he's had these things charge him from such a close distance that he was able to put 7 rounds into one of them with 5.56 ammunition. I'm not a gun guy, but my understanding is that that's a lot of firepower.
Okay, so let me just throw something in from a ballistic standpoint, because I've got a little background in this whole thing.
Please.
So
that's part of this. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a 223 round, which is a NATO round, which is basically what they use in the M16s during Vietnam. So that's an official NATO round, high velocity. It's a smaller bullet. It doesn't have a lot of grain or a lot of weight to it, but man, it's accurate as hell, and it does pack a punch, because otherwise NATO would not be using it as their round. So yeah, that's
lethal
pretty
at
crazy.
200 yards, I think.
Wow. Yeah, easily and highly accurate. A highly 223 or 5.62 is a very, very accurate round, and it packs a pretty good punch.
Yeah, and this is a guy with a military background, law enforcement background. Like a lot of these witnesses we hear from, people who are credible, who aren't looking to go out there. And this gentleman has not agreed to let me come on his property. And we tried for the filming. We offered to preserve his identity, but he's very, very concerned for safety because these things are so active out there. And the story he told me that gave me pause was, again, the one about putting 7 rounds into it at close range. And there was a moment where I stopped and I was like, can I put this in the book? Like, are people going to believe this? But again, as a writer, that's not my role. It's not my role to decide if someone is credible or if a story makes sense. I think the guy is very credible because I've interviewed not just for this project, but also for the magazine and for our podcast. I've interviewed a lot of people. I don't know how many interviews I've conducted, but it's a lot. And you know when someone is feeding you a line. I also worked in sales for 10 years. So that teaches you how to read people. And if anyone I've ever interviewed believes what they're saying, it was this guy. And I'm like, people need to know about this. Regardless of how fantastical it sounds, this is important information we need to get out there. So that was one of the moments where I really stopped and my mind just kind of shut down for a little bit because there was a lot to absorb there. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I know Nick Valente interviewed the gentleman with his buddy Jeremiah Fountain, and we recently interviewed both individuals, and they had that gentleman that you're talking about, and he sounds 100%.
He's been doing some interviews. Yeah. He's been getting out there and sharing his story more. I'm glad. I'm very glad about that. I'm hoping that there can be an opportunity to get out there and do some field research. But after talking with him, I understand his concerns for safety. So I
agree. And that's the number one thing that we always try to preach is safety when you're out in the field, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When you also can't account for human, I don't want to say stupidity, but human foolishness. And people will sneak out places at night, unfortunately, if
exactly
word gets out. And that's another concern. So I understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's switch it up a little bit and go backward in time a little bit with the Queen of Cryptids with Linda Godfrey. So God rest her soul, absolutely. Yep. She's missed by everybody in the community and whatnot. So, one thing that I had texted her or messaged her quite some time back, and we kind of went back and forth on, and when we were talking a little bit about the native perspective. And one thing that she was talking about and was all of the sightings, the encounters that took place in southeastern Wisconsin, as she related them to native mound locations. And she was looking at, the encounters, and she overlaid a map of burial mounds in southeastern Wisconsin, and she found that, man, these things are like almost verbatim laid one over the other, where there's an encounter near a burial mound. And she had a map of that, and she was going to send it to me, but unfortunately, it never transpired, and I didn't get a copy of that map. But we did go back and forth and talk a little bit about that, and I would love to see, and that take place in Texas. I know it's not an easy task, but it's something to think about.
It is, and that was gonna, because that was gonna be my answer, because I haven't asked this before, and the fact is that there is so much history in this state. We had 6 independent nations that have ruled here within modern history, and that's of course going back. Then we have the native tribes, and we have the Mesoamerican tribes who were here thousands of years ago. So sure. we don't know where all the bodies are. We don't know,
right? Exactly,
and that's it's cool that we have so much history here, but that's an unfortunate side effect, is that there has been so much upheaval. And history, of course, is written by the winners, and a lot of native and indigenous peoples were displaced here forcibly. So maybe we don't want to keep records of where they're dead or buried because we built a schoolhouse over it, And I'm just speculating. I'm just spitballing. That's not something I can back up with fact. But the thing is, we just don't know, So I think more research would need to be done. More people of that have native backgrounds who know about this stuff would need to be consulted with. In order for us to really come up with hard data. I would love to do something like that. I would love to cross-reference these sightings with, native locations and burial grounds. And I would love to know more about the native peoples of this area regarding their perspective on this stuff. I just have not been fortunate enough to make those connections. Hopefully yet.
One thing with Linda, she was lucky enough to have the capabilities to, in those burial mounds are there in southeastern Wisconsin. So it's a lot easier, to do that. And of course, your state is, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of square miles to cover.
For sure.
So it's a
largest state in
huge
the
area.
union.
Yeah,
we are, I believe, 268,000 square miles, if I'm not mistaken.
200, yeah. So,
and if I'm wrong, y'all can kick me out of Texas. I'm bad with numbers. I don't know about guns, and I'm bad with numbers. Those are 2 facts.
Well, you got to pick up on those points a little bit there, Aaron. Brush up a little bit.
I write books.
That's the best.
That's the best.
Google Docs has a word counter. I'm fine.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. Yeah, but it's an interesting connection, and I know that it would be a huge undertaking, and like you say, you got to pull in various native groups. You got to find out if there's any of these mounds that are in Texas, for one thing. Maybe there isn't, but it's something to think about, and
it's definitely
ponder.
something. It's definitely something that's like on my mind and on the notepad, so to speak. Yeah. And now again, working through the book and with Small Town Monsters, I have been able to make some connections. So we'll see, man. We'll see where life takes us. That's the hope.
Can I throw a question out there, Aaron? Are you on the flesh and blood, or do you believe there's a paranormal aspect to the Dogman phenomenon?
Oh man, this one. Okay, so no, this is an important question.
What's coming?
This is an important. I mean, this is an important question, and it's
How to
one
throw
of the
it
main.
out there.
Yeah, you gotta, man, because when I started this project, I was very much flesh and blood. Very much. My thinking was that this initial triangle of sightings that I had mapped out was some kind of an unidentified animal, maybe a one-off, maybe a hybrid, maybe a mutant. And these sightings were spaced 2 years apart each. It was 6 years, almost to the date where these things were popping up. So I'm like, okay, yeah, it's an animal that people are seeing. That makes sense. But then you start looking at more reports and more sightings, and that explanation doesn't fit every encounter. It doesn't work. And the other thing that doesn't work is that people are terrified after they see these things. There's a whole chapter in the book called The Element of Fear, because people don't walk away from these encounters sleeping well. They don't have an easy time going about their normal routines. And there are exceptions to the rule. You talk to John, and he's very pragmatic and very poker face about it. He seems like he's doing all right. There's a gentleman named Killian, also connected with me by Jesse and Joe, who's down in the Houston corner. And he said, he specifically told me in his report, I wasn't scared. It wasn't something to be scared of. It seemed like it wanted me to see it, which is a whole nother element. But every other story I've read about, every other encounter that I put in the book, these folks were terrified. They were disturbed by it. So if they're just animals, why is that? And yeah, some dogs are big and some dogs are very scary. But when you're talking to Texas Hill Country people, these folks live in the wilderness. Many of them are ranchers or farmers. They know how to shoot from as the day that they can stand up. Like that's just who they are. They don't scare easy. They don't rattle when they see a strange dog. They're used to seeing strange dogs. Christina Downs at the Texas Folklore Society, You know, she's quoted in the book as saying ranchers and farmers have been seeing weird dogs in Texas. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, for generations. You know, this is something we're used to out here. So what is it about these sightings, these encounters that is leaving people with what, you know, symptomatically we can describe as post-traumatic stress disorder? I don't know. So then you got to get into the idea, well, are these spectral things? Are they something interdimensional or something ghostly that we don't understand yet? But then for me, I'm like, okay, well, what is a ghost? You know, we think of ghosts as the spirits of deceased humans. Why do these look like dogs? Well, maybe they're interdimensionals. Well, what is an interdimensional? Does an interdimensional leave footprints? It's maddening. So in general, at least in Texas, the majority of the encounters that we've documented seem to fit the bill of flesh and blood sightings. But there are exceptions. So, and I little spoiler for the movie, this does come up in one conversation. I think there's more than one thing at play here. I don't think we can put all this stuff under the same column. You know, I don't think we can check off supernatural or flesh and blood. I just don't think it's possible. So, cop out.
You're good. Hey, we just wanted your opinion on it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm 50-50 myself. I'm like, hey, if it's in this dimension and it's eating on a deer carcass and it's breathing, hey, it's flesh and blood. But then you see it just disappear 2 seconds later into thin air. So there's something weird. There's some connection to it. So
So so maybe it's both. Maybe these are interdimensional beings or spectral beings that we don't understand yet within what we look at or what we know as science, but they do have flesh and blood needs, like, you know, food. So
exactly.
I don't know.
Like we were talking to one other guest there a while back, said, well, just because it's interdimensional does not necessarily mean that it doesn't eat.
Exactly.
So,
yes. I've had that question asked. Like, well, if this is some kind of a spiritual or interdimensional or supernatural being, then why would it need to eat? Like, well, how do we know that it wouldn't?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's scarier to me than anything else. How do we know that it
wouldn't? For sure. Especially the size that they're reported. I mean, if it was a flesh and blood, it'd have to eat at least 3 deer a day just to keep that frame. So at least 3 deer. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know how many it would take, but
I mean, we've got enough down here. We've got enough.
Yeah, I was gonna say Texas has got a lot of deer.
We do.
Deer population. Yeah, plenty of things to eat for a dogman for sure.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that for me points to this being an animal, because they seem to show up really close to wood lines, really close to ranches and private property that are totally unobserved most of the time. Areas where there's a lot of white-tailed deer. A lot of the witnesses that I talked to, like Nick out of Medina, mentioned specifically, we have a lot of white-tailed deer down here. John out of Dallas, Fort Worth. Sorry to keep referencing the same cases, but I don't want to spoil.
No, it's fine. That's totally fine.
Yeah. You know, his strange activity before he saw one of these things started with the deer population that would come on his property every year, basically disappearing. He describes them as sounders of 30 to 40 wild hogs. And then the season that these things started showing up, he was seeing maybe 5 or 6 total over the course of those months. So, you know, there's correlation that suggests these things are attacking and consuming game. But
there's so many different possibilities. And here's another little aside, Aaron. Shane and I were interviewing Nick Valente a few weeks ago, and we were talking about the UFO, UAP, whatever the heck you want to call them these days, connection between that and Dogman encounters. And I was blown away by the statistics that he's found, with the research that he's done. And Shane, you got to hit the number thing. What was it, 700 plus encounters that were with UFOs and a Dogman sighting at the same time?
Yes, so it was 92. After a 6-month survey, he had over 400, and it was 92% of Dogman sightings had a UFO, sighting shortly after or before. But then, as the reports were coming in, it jumped up to 94% after he had 300 more come in. I think after that, so it was a total of 700 reports. It jumped the number up to 94% of Dogman sightings had a UAP UFO sighting before or after.
Yeah. And that's something that's so fascinating, because again, that's not something that seems to come up in Texas. Texas is thick with UFO sightings. That's another topic we did a podcast on, just because there's a lot down here. So if you were to cross-reference maps of Dogman sightings with UFO sightings, there's a fair chance that you'll see some correlation there. And that's another thing that our buddies Jesse and Joe have looked into, is the UAP Dogman connection. So it's like the supernatural question. There's definitely something there, and there's definitely something to dig into. But what we see in Texas doesn't seem to fit that profile, and I couldn't begin to tell you why. But
I don't think anybody can, but it's certainly another interesting tidbit of information, to try to piece this phenomenon together. And that, in Shane's opinion, my opinion, I think together, with everybody else in the community, the more we bring out with different questions and statistics and try to put some facts to it. And one thing that I remember listening to was the cloaked hedgehog, and she's no longer in the cryptid community anymore.
I tried to reach her.
I tried to get her on the show. She messaged me back and said she doesn't do it anymore, and she really is sorry that she can't do it.
Respect.
Yeah, I respect that. And, she did some great research early on, 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. And it's still, in my opinion, some of the best work that's been done on the Dogman phenomenon. One thing that she was talking about was, I lost my train of thought on where I was going with this. But, the more we can try to not speculate and not just impose our own ideas on what this thing is, but look to try to find as many facts and just stick with that, and then start building upon that, and eventually you start to figure this whole thing out. And I really have thought about that a lot from listening to her in the past, and it makes a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I agree with that very, very strongly. And that's another reason I was excited to work with STM on this, because that's how they approach these stories. They present facts. They present these encounters as people experienced it. There's not all the stuff we see in a lot of the mainstream content where it's just so over the top that you're like, come on, man, I'm trying to do research here. And that's how they approach this project, is presenting the facts as they were presented to us, presenting the witnesses' stories as they were told to us. Like, you have to edit the movie together, of course, things have to be trimmed and moved around, but those conversations in that movie are as they occurred when we were on the ground. The responses are not edited to push an agenda. This is what these folks said. So it's important. Important.
Yeah, Aaron, that's what I was going to follow up with. Have you done a lot of field investigations into the phenomenon in the Triangle area, or was it for the book to interview the eyewitnesses?
Yeah, so I've been in Central Texas. I've actually lived more than half my life in Texas at this point. So I had been to a lot of these places kind of organically, just living here for a long time. We traveled back and forth a lot between Austin and San Antonio before we moved, and we were driving right through where 3 of these sightings occurred. Every time we would drive through, I'd point the spots out to my wife, be like, "That's just one right there. And then there was another one over here." So I had already been to a lot of these places. Actually going out and doing like field research on the ground, camping out, that is not something I've had the opportunity to do. It's on the list. Kind of hoping to set some of that up before the end of the year, but this was very much a research project in the traditional sense, that I wasn't necessarily out in the field gathering data. And I don't have the expertise to do that. I could have spent a month staying in Sam Houston National Forest and not caught jack. And I can tell you from where I was a year ago, I probably wouldn't have caught anything. I'm just now to a point where I feel like, okay, I think I can document this stuff in the field. And I've actually gone out with my buddy Rod Nichols over at Bear County Bigfoot, and he's been showing me some of the stuff that he does. And Mike Ann over at Tactical Bigfoot Research has been giving me some tips. So I'm easing my way into that. But man, like, I'll get so excited, I'll find a Chihuahua print and be like, "It's a midget Dogman." So I want to get a little practice under my belt and
get out the tape measure. It's better be over 5 inches.
I even do, man, like, because I've been looking at these images and researching this stuff so much. When I do see like regular dog prints in the mud, I'm like, oh, look, honey, look, honey, there's a tiny werewolf. Shut up and get in the car, please. Like,
yeah,
let me
was
cast
standing
it.
out.
Hold on.
Yeah, let me cast it. Oh, it was standing outside of my window. You know, a couple of prints. You know.
Yeah.
Well, some of the other stuff, that we kind of look at are the places that these things are seen. By riverbeds, by stream beds, by, cemeteries, by, crossings. Railroads, dense forests. The topography just kind of goes, goes off the chart. So in Texas, you give us a sense a little bit about the topography in some of these places. I've been to Texas like once, decades ago in the cities, but as far as the, you're investing, you're researching an area, like in central Texas that, you call the hill towns or whatever. So what is that topography like?
Yeah, so Texas itself, again, it's huge. We're thousands and thousands of square miles, so you have very diverse environments. We have areas that get snow during the winter if you go up north far enough. Maybe not a ton of it. I don't know. Last couple of years we've had these blizzards, but that's another thing entirely. Very hot, very dry, but we have a lot of forests. We have a lot of very thick, very lush green belts. We have a lot of waterways. The Colorado River runs through here, runs right through the heart of Austin. So in addition to being very dry and very arid, you do have a lot of very lush areas. And as you get further over, to Louisiana and going closer to the coast, we have swamplands, we have marshes. So we've got really a little bit of everything. Coastal areas, of course. We have a super long coastline. And then we have some of the biggest cities in the United States. So we also have very, very thick urban areas. Sure. Where these sightings seem to be occurring, at least the ones we know about right now, is in these undeveloped spaces. National parks, Meridian State Park, Sam Houston National Forest, for example, the Lake Travis area. We have some stuff adjacent to that. Ranch land and farmlands. Again, vast spaces where nobody's allowed to go because this is private property. And this is Texas. People have guns. Trespassing is hazardous to your health. Don't do that.
Enter your own risk.
Yeah, just don't do that. It's not a good idea. So there are places where we don't see a whole lot of people. But again, if we look at this map, the primary concentrations are in cities and towns around these major metropolitan areas: Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston. So again, why is that? Is it because we have more people over there, and so there are just more eyes? I don't know. I think that's a good theory, but to kind of give a short answer to your question, the environments here are incredibly diverse. They can support a variety of different ecosystems. What we can't do is support cold weather animals because it was 105 today. Like, I'm still sweating.
Oh, wow.
And the sun's been down for an hour and a half. Like,
no doubt.
Things like mooses can't live here, for example.
Yeah. So the hill country, you've got sightings and stuff that, when you mentioned that a few times, so give us a kind of a sense of what, other than being hilly, what's kind of the environment in that particular area of the state.
Yeah, the area that I think of as the hill country is, as you said, very hilly. We don't have mountains here, so it's a lot of rises and falls, but then a lot of grasslands, a lot of plains, forests and greenbelts scattered all over the place. And again, areas like Sam Houston National Forest are very, very much just woods. But the hill country is huge. And I'll be honest with you, I couldn't tell you the exact borders and it starts with this city and ends with this city. But you're talking about primarily an environment that is very wooded, that is largely undeveloped, and has a lot of waterways. And several rivers crisscross with each other, and we've got a lot of folklore associated with those about ghosts and stuff like that. But you also have a lot of European settlements. We have a lot of towns that were German or French settlements back in the day, and both of those cultures have werewolves with them. So, or within their oral histories rather. So, it's the environment, but then it's also the cultural background.
Cultural,
that for me contributes to it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think, people definitely bring their superstitions with them when they come from Europe and they migrate, they migrated here to America, especially, I'm from New England, steeped in, in native, in English and French, history, and they bring those traditions with them. I mean, the Europeans in the, even as late as the 17th century in Europe, they didn't venture out at night. They were scared of the night. They boarded themselves up. Even in New England, when you had, you had settlers, in Massachusetts and Connecticut, in the 17th century, they didn't venture very far from home, and they had those superstitions that they brought with them from Europe. And I'm sure it's the same in Texas. You've got Germanic people, you've got French, that, of course, the werewolf scares in Europe in the 15th and 16th century were huge in those countries, and they bring those beliefs with them. So, it perpetuates over time, I think.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, you also have, again, we talked about the native populations. You also have Mesoamerican peoples that have been here since the jump, as far as we're concerned.
Sure.
La Lechuza, the Nagual, they were sorcerers who were said to be able to take on a variety of forms, such as owls, snakes, rats, dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they were here way before any of the European settlers. So La Lechuza is different from the Nagual. I just put those in the same sentence. But, there were shapeshifter and upright walking animal legends going all the way back before any of us were thought of. It's a lot, man. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, Aaron, we're coming up on the 1 hour mark. We got about 8 minutes till then. But, we were going to probably get in another couple questions. I wanted to ask you, though, kind of to wrap it up, are you planning on going tour with your book to any big conferences? And are you going to be at Josh Turner's Paranormal Roundtable Dogman Conference in September?
Yeah, fun stuff. So I've got a couple events lined up locally here in San Antonio before the end of the year. I think I'll be at the San Antonio Paranormal Convention. I have a book signing at the Twig bookstore in downtown San Antonio in, I want to say, August. I've talked to Josh. I am going to be at that event. He did ask me to come, and I said, yeah, man, absolutely. So he and I have not had a chance to sit down and talk details and stuff, but I'm driving out there, man. I got to be there. So future signings and stuff, I'm not sure. I'm supposed to be at Cryptid Bash in West Virginia, put on by my good buddies, the Moth Boys, and Small Town Monsters will be there as well, I believe. So
right on. Hoping
to sign some books there, but as you guys probably know, a lot of this stuff tends to happen sort of last minute. So
right. Hey, see you on Friday.
Watch the space, I guess.
Well, we're planning on coming down to the second Dogman conference. So I'm bringing my book down, and I'm going to chase you down, and you're gonna sign it for me.
Heck
so
yeah,
I love signed books, so I definitely like you to
this
put
whole
the autograph
shelf
in there.
next to me. This whole shelf next to me is signed books. I'm with you there, man.
Yeah, I'm big on. I love it, and it's super good stuff. But
I'm super stoked for Todd. Todd's getting to go. I'm unfortunately not going to be able to go. I told Josh, though, in honor of West Coast, I was going to purchase 2 tickets for 2 individuals that were less fortunate and couldn't go because I'm starting to kind of dwindle down. And, you got to take a hiatus on the Dogman research just because the baby's on the way. And then it's also the week of my anniversary. So it's I can't go. I'm sorry, Josh. So
yeah.
Lucky. We'll have to get a signature. Maybe I'll mail my book off to Todd. And when he goes,
we'll bring it with us.
Yeah. Jonathan Dodd, who did the cover art, and he also did the illustrations for the movie. So everything Jonathan Dodd does is great.
Amazing.
But he and I are talking about trying to come up with a mail ring or something so he can sign them and I can sign them and we can get them back to people. So.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Maybe we'll do book plates. I don't know, but
I was going to say the cover of the book is just phenomenal. It's just the artwork. It's so much detail into it.
Dude. I pitched him the idea. I was like, hey, man, I'm working on this book with STM. And he'd done work with Small Town Monsters before, of course. And I was like, I'd love to have you do the cover. What do you think? He's like, yeah, absolutely. What'd you have in mind? And I think I sent him maybe a paragraph and a half of what I had in mind. And the design you see on that cover is the first draft that he sent me. Of course, he did detail work and tweaked it and did stuff later on. But that image of that wolf with that color scheme is the first thing he sent me. And I was like, wow, that's it. Yeah. I was
I love it, man.
I want a triangle. I want red and purple. I want a werewolf. Magic.
Boom.
You gotta have it. And the other thing that I just picked up on not that long ago, because my eyes my eyes aren't what they used to be. It looks like you got a map sitting in the background of Texas there. So
Yeah,
it's all overlaid there.
Superimposed the map of Texas
that's
behind
great.
the triangle, and it's just like,
If
bro.
anyone can see it, kind of. For anyone watching, I don't know if they can really see it.
Yeah.
I couldn't upload the picture of the actual book. I apologize for that. Well, yeah.
It's on this poster behind me.
Yeah, there you go. You can probably see it a little bit better.
Yeah, it might be a little bit of a but no, man. Jonathan's work really brought this thing to life, literally. So, yeah.
So tell us where.
Go ahead, Todd. My bad.
Yeah, no. Go ahead. We're just going to say.
You already started it. I'll let you go.
Well, I think both of us were going to say the same thing. We're tell people where they can, find the book and how can they get it.
Yeah,
because they want it. They want it, so they got to get it.
Yeah, check it out. I would love for you to check it out. I'd love to know what you think. I'm all about feedback. It is available at shop.smalltownmonsters.com. You can also get it on Amazon. I love physical copies of books, but if you just need it in your eyes right away, you can get the Kindle version and download it immediately. Yep. You can also do both if you want. I don't know if you want to.
Hey, the Kindle version is actually cheaper. It's half the price.
It is. It is. Yeah, you can skip paying for production costs and get it straight into your hand. So there's perks either way. It's a win.
Right. Save a few trees. No.
Yeah, save some trees.
Winter Dogman dinner.
There you go.
There you go.
You can keep an eye on most of what we're doing on Instagram at hey_strangeness. That's what the platform I update most regularly. We have Twitter and TikTok, but I just don't enjoy using those platforms, so I'm not on them very much. Of course, anything Small Town Monsters does, smalltownmonsters.com. They'll of course be sharing updates. The movie becomes available Tuesday. You can get it on Amazon, Vudu, all the streaming services. And of course, if you're a Kickstarter backer, it is already in your inbox. And I do have a website, heystrangeness.com, that I don't update as often as I would like, but that's kind of a hub for all my nonsense. So.
Good. It's all good nonsense, right?
Yep.
For sure.
I hope so. I enjoy it.
It's all good.
So I hope other people do.
Well, we enjoy it. I'm not, I got a little bookmark here in mine, and I'm about halfway through. I was trying to get through the whole book before we did the interview. I couldn't do it, but it's, we may have, and Shane, you could back me up on this. We may have to have Aaron come back for part 2.
Yeah, I'd definitely be honored to have you. I know you are super busy, man. So, I mean, later on in the year or when everything kind of dwindles down a little bit, I'd be happy to have you.
Let me know. We'll make it happen, dude. I'm here for it. Yeah.
Well, Aaron, we are so honored to have you. Thank you again tonight so much, brother.
Thank you.
And you have a good rest of your evening. And like I say, thank you so much.
You as well, gentlemen.
Thanks so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Well, Todd, that was a grand slam out of the park, man. You did awesome with that one, brother. You should pat yourself on the back. Like I say, you said it gets better and better each week. I mean, that was what I was going to ask you. Who do we got next week?
God, who the heck do we have next week? I was so excited about this one. I forgot what I forgot who the heck is coming on next week.
Let me check my notes really quick.
Yeah, we got to look at let's look at the notes over here to make sure that we get this right here.
Okay, I got it up right here. So on the 29th of June, we have Leroy Smith, who's had 2 Dogman encounters out of Southern California. So he's in my home state. So this will be a fun one.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm pretty stoked to have that. And then after that, we start our UK series. I still got to get outreach with a few of the eyewitnesses, but Dogman eyewitnesses from the UK. So that's going to be July. And then in August, we're going to do our part 2. I believe we're going to have Nick Valente back. Aaron's, I think, still going to be pretty busy at that time. I know Bettina and I think Abe was possibly going to come on. And then I think we're trying to schedule Jody in there too, or Carlito, somebody. We'll have to check. We don't know. Nothing's confirmed. So,
no, but it's all good. And I mean, just doing the rundown of who we've had the past number of months, it's been really great. It's been great working with you as the co-host. I know this is kind of a new thing certainly a new thing for me. You've been doing it for a while, and I really enjoy doing it and meeting all of these people and trying to figure out what the hell this phenomenon is. And the more people we get to talk to, maybe we'll finally hit that smoking gun or, break down the cement wall that we've been up against here for a while.
Exactly. And I think you said the more as we get more answers out there, heck, our tagline says it. The answer is out there. It's just having to get the boots on the ground research and try to put this puzzle together. But for every puzzle piece we put in, it seems like 3 more fall off, and we're trying to find out what the heck, how does it connect? So
yeah,
I'm definitely
exactly.
Definitely
We
by it.
got some great comments that were coming in, from everybody who tuned in tonight. So that's really awesome too. We appreciate everybody that that listens. We appreciate the people who come on after the podcast is over and it comes up on YouTube, and people get a chance to see it and listen to these great guests and everybody who's in the community. I don't know everybody, but the people I have met, have been really good and super friendly, and it's just been a really great experience and stuff. So I'm really happy to be a part of it all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. And that's what I love about this community. So, and one thing I wanted to promote a little bit tonight, I forgot where the shirt was, but we have a couple hats left for the West Coast Dogman, neon green little snapbacks, $25. Got to ship some more out tomorrow. Todd, I'm shipping your package out. And then we also have the t-shirts with the logos on them. Not this t-shirt in particular. These t-shirts are actually cheaper. So if you want one of these, $19 on Sticker Mule, send me your contact info and I'll ship it off to you. If not, we've got ones with the circle logo on the front, and then the answer is out there, logo on the back. So
I gotta say, Shane, you did an awesome job on the logos and stuff for these shirts. I love my shirt, and you did a really good job. I as far as West Coast goes, can't beat it, hands down. I think the logo is great. The organization's great. We got some really, it's building. Hey, I got to do a shout out for the Washington chapter of NADP, from Region 1 and stuff. God, we just broke 400 members today, which is really great. And, I'm really stoked about the interest in Washington State, and it's really good. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Hey, it's growing. It's the fastest growing state chapter page that we've got for the North American Dogman Project. So hats off to you, Todd. And hey, and like you said, this is a team effort. This isn't one person.
Yeah.
West Coast, 3 states, but it's just the name. But we're just a little small group, but it's all teamwork effort. And I couldn't thank you enough for all the help you've done, Todd, and helping me and all the other admins and moderators we have on the Facebook page. So to all them, huge shout out to all you guys.
Yeah, definitely a shout out to all the admins and moderators on the Washington page and the West Coast page, and everybody who does their part and tries to make it make it a good clean site with just Dogman stuff, and it works out really well. Really good.
Well, Todd, like I said,
right.
This has been a true honor, and it's awesome being in the co-host seat with you, and just doing the whole 9 yards with the whole Dogman phenomenon. So I'll see you. I'll actually give you a call tomorrow, but I will see you next Thursday, when we interview Leroy Smith out of Southern California. Everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Catch you on the next one. Take care.
This is 10% luck, 20% skill, 15% concentrated power of will.